Tower Defense Simulator has 52 unique towers. I think, if I counted right. I want to try soloing the game with every one of them individually to see how far each can go. One tower only, no supports, no power-ups. I'm playing all these runs on Molten mode, which has become a fair bit tougher since I last attempted this challenge a few years back. Yeah, I already did this idea a while ago, I know. This video is cooler though. I'm going to go in sequential order, worst results to best. Meaning we're beginning with, of course, obviously, the worst performing towers are the supports, which do no damage. Commander buffs nearby towers, but does nothing by itself. It has some abilities which can do damage, but they're too unaffordable. You'll die to the zombies before you can buy them. Its farm. It also loses on wave 3. Like Commander, this tower has been reworked semi-recently, and now has 3 different abilities, but also like Commander, it can't do anything. Finally, the last non-damaging tower is the Fireworks Technician. This is a pretty good tower actually. It can give nearby units different detections and bolster their arsenal with some fireworks shots, but by itself it's useless. Also, it's very off-putting to me how uncentered the tower is compared to its placement circle. Like, does this bother anyone else? Am I just particularly mentally ill? Alright, so turret is the first in a subsect of towers which are too expensive to be placed down before the early game zombies kill you. To make this video more interesting, I allowed myself to use admin mode to make the initial placement cost for these towers $0, only for the first placement. After that I reverted it. This allows them to survive the early game and kind of get an actual proper run going. So yeah, I did that for all of these towers just to make it more fun, you know? Except turret. I didn't do it for turret because I don't care about this tower. It can have its wave 5 loss. This tower is a practical joke by the developers. The punchline being that it's really bad. Like, it's just awful. Another ice-themed tower. You'll find that these don't do particularly well in this challenge. Cryomancer can do some damage with its freeze effect, but it's much more support focused. By itself, it can't do much at all, although it is the first tower to reach the Elite Abnormal in wave 8. This is the first marginally challenging enemy in Molten mode, as it has quite a bit of health. Cryomancer was not able to take it out. The rockets this tower shoots are not very strong at all. They can stall the zombies a little, they push them back slightly. That's about it. Medic is a really good support tower, but its DPS is 1, I think. I think it does 1 DPS, assuming you're buffing it with Commander, and DJ, and Mercenary Base. Yeah, it is just not strong at all. This tower is like fallen off and then become top tier and then fallen off again like 10 times. In the meta right now, I think it's pretty bad. It certainly isn't good for this challenge. It has the same problem as all the other melee towers. Its range is just too small to be able to effectively handle high health zombies. It ended up losing on wave 10. With this tower, we reach the benchmark of units strong enough to survive the early game, but who lack hidden detection. Yeah, in big 2025, some towers still don't have it. Thankfully less than before, but there's also... none of these towers have affordable hidden detection. Technically, you can get a bit of splash damage from some of them, like Demo Man or Executioner. You could survive that first wave of hiddens, make it a bit further, but I mean, you just die to the next round of them, there's not much point. All of these guys lost around wave 11, and joining them with that result is... this tower does have hidden detection. It just sucks, it does no damage. Frost Blaster similarly suffers from a lack of power. It can manage the crowds, but a single Elite Abnormal is too much. This tower has a mechanic where it builds a surplus of gravestones, which can then be used to summon undead minions to deal your damage for you. It's cool on paper, but it's annoying to use in practice. I ended up losing by trying the Graves max. You could definitely go further, but I mean with a lot of these runs you could go further with optimal play. Mortar is one of my favorite towers. I like it a lot. It's strong, it's got some peak skins, it's a cliff tower which is unique. This script is so bad. Unfortunately, it doesn't have hidden detection, although I was able to make it a few ways further than the other detectionless towers, thanks to its splash damage. There were some other struggles, though. These are the molten corpses. Basically, some enemies, when they die, leave behind a stationary pseudo-secondary form. They don't move, they can't kill you, but they do sponge up a lot of damage. And when some of the really strong zombies leave behind corpses, things can get rough. I don't know why Mortar can't hit them, by the way, I just thought that was a fitting segue. Regardless, Mortar lost to the next batch of hiddens on wave 13. Like Turret, this is one of the normally unaffordable towers, but even when allowed one free ranger, it's ill-suited for this challenge. It's a tower about, occasionally shooting very high damage shots. And that high damage is wasted on these 6 health abnormals, and it doesn't have any hidden detection anyway, so it can't really do anything. A shame, because I like this tower a lot. It's mid. This tower will forever be goated to me for helping me solo hardcore mode, but if we're being real, it kinda fell off. I thought this tower would do really well, but it felt unexpectedly weak to me. Like, yeah, a better map would have let me kill this last zombie here, and I could have made it a bit further, but the writing was on the wall. Mini was not doing nearly as much DPS as needed. Fighting fire with fire kind of works. I mean, it was okay. It was like the definition of a mid-run. I'll say it, I'll be the guy to stand up in the courtroom or the classroom or whatever that pick is from. I don't like Mercenary Base. It's very strong. You can spawn a ton of powerful path units, it has the airdrop ability, you can give a damage buff to nearby towers, but maybe I'm just too much of an unk. I find it really annoying to have to micromanage all that. Give me good old-fashioned military base. You place it down and the car comes out, This is mid. Mercenary Base is lame. The Discord's gonna hate that one. It was also the worst performing spawner tower in this challenge, as it lost on wave 16, only barely making it that far, as the wave timer just flipped in time. The hash slinging slasher. It's okay. Same problem as Gladiator, struggles with the bosses, although it did have enough DPS to make it a couple of waves further. Good for him. I don't know if it's just me, but this tower kind of gives off Fortnite vibes, Its damage isn't the best, but it does have the Thorns ability, which lets you place some thorns along the path, Druid from BTD6. That does bolster its DPS a fair amount. It can also be used to kill hiddens, which is handy. I had some very close calls here. I managed to tank a few zombies, but eventually my luck did run out, along with all of my Thorns abilities. I'd never used this tower prior to making this video, and it's a unique one. It has a fire and ice mode, along with different abilities for each, and it was able to do okay. You can tell when I have so little to say about a tower, I just give up on writing. Elf Camp mogs Mercenary Base, even with a placement limit of only 2. It actually loses on the same wave, but I'm putting it deeper in the video to make it look better, okay? We've been stuck in wave 16 hell for a while now, but Pursuit is the tower to finally get past that barrier. It loses on wave 17, which might have something to do with the fact that I forgot to turn auto skip off, but the more likely reasoning is because Pursuit sucks. This tower is very odd. It got a full functionality rework, but its models weren't changed, so it still has the rinky-dink 2020 skins. Its arrows can carry different status effects, which you would think would make it a pretty good tower, but you'd think wrong. I lost to the Molten Golem, which is the boss that spawns in wave 16. It doesn't have any attacks or abilities to harm your towers, it's just a big damage sponge, and it kinda became a heat check for a lot of these towers. You need a good amount of damage to defeat it, which I did not have with the archer. Now this tower got reworked and got glow up. I believe the new model is based off Risk of Rain or something, looks pretty based. The placement cost is such that I was just barely able to afford it in a natural game, and it performed pretty well initially. It has a reload mechanic, which is annoying as hell, but it also has a missile strike ability, which is cool. I tried skipping a wave to make a play for an early upgrade to use against the boss, but that ended up backfiring, and I got overwhelmed. Yeah, Scout, the literal starting tower, is this deep in the video. Crazy. The thing is, even though its stats are bad, Scout is cheap, it's easily spammable, and it has decent range. By building up an army of the tower, I was actually able to take out the Molten Golem boss. I did end up losing on the following wave, but that's still a respectable finish. This is the wrong game. One of the most forgettable towers in the game, Hunter lost all his aura when they took away his attack bird. It's okay, it does good against the bosses. I did end up getting overwhelmed though. Yeah, Sniper as well. A lot of the beginner towers really show out for this challenge. It has similar strengths to the Scout. It's cheap, spammable, and for Sniper specifically, it's a tower with huge range. It can cover most of the map. The Golem got chopped up. I had a very close call in the next wave, although I did clutch it out. But in the end, the Sniper fell to the Molten Necromancer. This Binacle head looking zombie, one of the worst Pokemon of all time by the way, spawns a lot of minions, not that type, and if you're underpowered DPS wise, you'll need to be smart with your tower's targeting, to focus on and take out the big guy first. I wasn't sharp enough with my targeting switching here and I ended up losing, which was also the case for I almost managed to take out the Necromancer, but I couldn't quite do it. Also, the match length here was 11-11, which I thought was neat. Okay, this is the most forgettable tower in the game. It's not particularly good or bad, it's just kind of there. It shoots bullets from a gun, it doesn't do anything special, and the result was unremarkable. I lost to the Necromancer again. This tower really excels on maps with a lot of tight corners. The shotgun spread damage is juicy, and after all those prior losses, Shotgunner was the tower to finally take out the Necromancer. And then I lost to these stupid Molten Dogs. Why are these even in Molten mode? What's the thematic connection there?
Crook Boss, one of the true OG towers and my personal favorite. I'm pretty sure it was originally based on that stupid level 100 Mafia boss meme, but I could be mistaken. In the current meta, it's pretty decent, having okay damage and can summon bodyguards, but the placement limit of 5 really kills it here. The Necromancers were rough, and the rush of dogs on the next wave eventually ended the run. Seriously, why are they here?
Gatling Gun is probably the most unique tower in TDS, because this tower has a unique ability which allows you to enter first person and fire the gun yourself. Combine that with its essentially infinite range and insane DPS, and it's a pretty sick tower. I know a lot of people love Gatling Gun, and I don't! Plot twist, change of tone. I find it really boring. It just becomes an exercise in holding down left click and trying not to zone out. You can't place or upgrade any other towers during this mode, you can't use power-ups or anything, you can't do much of anything. I ended up leaking multiple enemies across this run just because I was not paying attention at all. Which also had something to do with the fact that I was like 40 towers deep into this video, but yeah, I don't really like Gatling Gun. I don't find it to be much fun. I ended up losing to the dogs in wave 21. The dogs having somewhat of what I would call slightly janky hitboxes. It'd be like that though. I had high hopes for Ace Pilot. It got a rework last year and now has different flight patterns along with altered stats. I honestly thought it might go all the way to the final wave. I even played on Honey Valley, one of the easiest maps to try to do everything I could to win. And it did cruise through the early game. It had some splash damage thanks to its bomb dropping, which helped me with the hordes, but the deeper into the 20s the waves got, the more and more ineffective Ace became. It was just not doing a whole lot of damage. You can probably win if you like perfectly micro the tower's flight path constantly. Shout out to all my aviation experts. But yeah, I didn't do that, so I lost. Inversely to Ace Pilot, I thought Trapper would be absolutely dismal for this challenge, but it did well. Trapper has various hazards in its backpack, regular spikes, bear traps, and explosive mines, the last of which offers pretty decent crowd control. Like, it was kind of putting in work. I was impressed with Trapper. This is also one of the few towers I did a second run with because on my first attempt, I lost in a very unnecessary way by being super frugal and trying to save all my money instead of placing towers so I could live, you know? But on that next attempt, Trapper was cooking. The damage output was solid, and I was handling most of the waves fairly comfortably. I took out the first Necromancer, a couple more after that, but then, on wave 26, I had to sell and move my trappers to be able to kill this last Necromancer, which left me in a very vulnerable position for the next wave. The backup trappers held their own, until they didn't. This is a pretty good all-around tower. It does some damage, makes some money. The biggest problem is its placement cap of only 12. That kind of hard caps its potential. Things really got rough on wave 27, which ended up being another roadblock type wave. Life is Roblox. On this wave, in addition to a bunch of doggos, 2 of these molten mech zombies spawn. And what you have to know about these zombies is that they suck, and I hate them. They have a ton of health and move super quickly. Not many towers managed to make it far enough to reach wave 27, and almost all of those who did ended up losing to the molten mechs. That also includes this is one of the most well-rounded towers in the game. It has all the detections you need, it's cheap enough to be able to defend early, and it has strong enough upgrades to survive the late game. It's just peak. I did have to mess with targeting a bit for the Necromancers, but nothing too crazy. Unfortunately, the Molten Mechs did require some crazy optimal targeting, which I don't know what targeting that is because I died. This is another tower I attempted multiple runs with because I do think this wave is super beatable, but I just couldn't do it. Accelerator, yeah, I don't know. Accelerator lost, because it's washed, yeah. I forgot to write a subscribe plug into the script, so I'm just post-recording this to say, please, subscribe. Thanks to the channel members. I don't know if I have any channel members left, I'll be honest, I haven't posted in a little bit. If I do, they're up on screen, if not, I fell off. After years of mediocrity, Rocketeer was recently fully reworked, and the new version is kinda peak. I like it. Any tower with splash damage is gonna do fantastic in this mode, with the sheer amount of enemy spam and all the corpses and whatnot. I wrote that, but I think all the splash damage towers did really bad in this video, right? I don't think they did that good at all. But Rocketeer especially was quite good. I stomped the stupid Necromancers. I almost lost due to a really risky wave skip, but I clutched up. And I was doing well enough that I actually thought I might have a chance against the wave 27 mechs. And then I died to the dogs, who are like perfectly placed just far away enough from each other to not really suffer from the effects of splash damage. Thank you, developers, thank you. I've always liked this tower, but I've never thought it was particularly good. Except that one time period in hardcore mode. If you know, you know. And it might not be particularly good if we're talking about the game in general, but for this challenge, it crushes it. The early levels are affordable enough. Prior to gaining the turret, the card does struggle a bit. Since you're relying on contact damage, you do kinda have to wait out every wave. But once you get that first level 3 upgrade, and the units gain the mounted sentry, you become blessed. The units then become tanks with powerful explosive shots throughout the later levels. That helps a ton with crowd control, and combined with their high base health, I was cruising through these waves. Golem, toast. Necromancers, toast. Even the Molten mechs, toast. I was able to make it further than I had with any other tower, all the way to wave 30. I know, it does not sound very impressive. On this wave, a powerful mini-boss spawns, the Molten Executioner. This zombie has 30,000 health, alongside an attack which can stun towers. But that doesn't matter to Military Base, because it isn't even a real tower. I was able to drain the boss's health bar easily, and the next wave, the Molten Summoner spawned, essentially just a juiced up version of the Necromancer, and the tanks took him out too. By this point, I had all my military bases maxed out, and I was regularly using their airstrike ability. Unfortunately, wave 32 was too tough. There were too many bulky zombies, and the tower's placement limit of only 5 really hurt me here. I just did not have enough tanks spawning. I had a ton of excess money which I couldn't convert to more power. Still, in the end, out of all the regular towers, Military Base had the best result, coming only 3 waves shy of the final boss. Afterwards, out of curiosity, I tried running the match back, except with the tower's placement cap removed, and I actually won. Like, really easily. They destroyed the final boss. Obviously this isn't a legitimate win, but still. 1 like equals 1 respect for Military Base. So yeah, that is all of the regular towers, which just leaves the golden units. Oh, and one other, hold up. Swarmer sucks, and it's the only tower I don't have, because Paradoxing Games refuses to re-release it. Grrr, shaking my fist in anger. Okay, now the real deal. There are 6 golden towers in the game, all of which are substantial upgrades over their regular variants. Or so you would think. But for this challenge, the results were interesting. First up is Golden Pyromancer. It's obviously not going to do super well, it's meant to be support. I lost at the same spot I did with the regular variant, although I was on a tougher map. Gold Crook Boss, good tower, but its placement limit really hurts it here. Only being able to place 4 of them just means you're not going to get the damage you need. It did make it a couple of ways past its regular version, the bodyguards clutched up multiple times, but it still was not enough. Golden Scout, I had really high hopes for this tower. I remembered it easily soloing the original version of Molten mode, but it doesn't quite have the sauce to take down the new version. I ended up losing again on wave 27, although you could definitely get further. I almost managed to tank this last zombie here and survive, but yeah, I didn't, so whatever. Golden Minigunner, I don't know, this was the second last tower I recorded for, Accelerator was last, and by this point I just didn't care. I made some dumb decisions I was about to lose, and I decided to just cheat and go wild with infinite money. Write that down on the results sheet. Golden Cowboy. This one was weird. Honestly, Golden Cowboy felt weaker somehow than the normal version. I legitimately felt like I was doing less damage. Somehow, I ended up losing on the exact same wave as I did with the regular Cowboy. I did manage to kill more of the zombies on that wave, but a loss is a loss, you know? Finally, Golden Soldier. This tower, very good, it's been very good. No placement cap is the key here. I was able to spam a ton of them, it's also not insanely pricey to max them all out, and I was finally, actually legitimately, able to make wave 35, the final wave, and take out the Molten Warlord. The final boss was actually fairly trivial, I didn't have to micro or anything. Golden Soldier just got it done. Now, you might be wondering, what was the point of this video?